Why are you even here?
To make sure you get home safely.
What happens when a night meant for fun becomes the final push that makes my husband hand me legal papers in front of everyone? Why did one chaotic club video turn into the moment he chose order over outbursts? How could I call him controlling when the result arrived calmly and publicly? Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. I'm the kind of woman people assume is just living her life. And honestly, I believed that too. Right up until the night everything changed. I thought going out with my friends would be harmless. I thought letting people hype me up on a crowded dance floor was normal. I thought my husband, Marcus, was just being dramatic when he looked uncomfortable. I told myself he should be proud other people found me attractive, that it meant he won. That's how twisted my thinking was back then. I didn't plan for anyone to put their hands on me. I didn't plan to get so drunk I stopped noticing who was touching me and who was just passing by. All I cared about was the attention, the lights, the music, the feeling that I still mattered. And when Marcus tried to pull me aside, I acted like he was embarrassing me, not the other way around. I joked about him being insecure. I laughed right in front of people. I didn't realize he'd already gone quiet. I didn't realize quiet meant distance, and distance meant planning. I didn't know that one club video, one stupid night, would lead to him filing for divorce right in front of me. I'm still not sure how that week even started, only that everything already felt heavy in a way I didn't want to admit. The house was quiet every morning, too quiet for a place that should have felt warm. I kept telling myself Marcus was just in another one of his quiet moods, the type he slipped into when work got busy. I tried not to notice how he left the house earlier than usual, or how the coffee pot still smelled fresh when I came into the kitchen long after he was gone. I tried not to notice the way my phone lit up with messages from Callie asking if I was alive, because I hadn't sent her a voice memo in 2 days. I tried not to notice anything that suggested something might be changing. Instead, I focused on myself, or at least that's what I claimed. I said I needed a break from the routine. I said the office was draining me with endless spreadsheets and co-workers who talked too much and too loud. I said Marcus should understand that I had my own needs. I even said he was slipping into some dull pattern that made me feel old. Saying things out loud made them feel true, even when they weren't, and I liked feeling right more than I liked feeling calm. That Monday morning, I sat at the living room table eating dry cereal straight from the box. I didn't bother with a bowl. My phone screen glowed in the dim light. Rafa had sent a short message about some big night coming up at the downtown club. He wrote that he had me on a special list. He always made it sound like he was doing me a favor. I liked the way he talked. He made me feel like I was important, like I had a life outside cleaning up after Marcus's tired footsteps. When Marcus came home that evening, he asked how my day went. I said it was fine. I didn't ask about his. I was still annoyed that he left without saying goodbye that morning. I told him he'd woken me up with all his noise. He said he tried to be quiet. I said he never tried enough. He didn't argue. He just nodded like he always did. Sometimes I hated that about him. His calm, his slow breathing, the way he'd sit down and take off his shoes as if he wasn't bothered by anything I said. I'd push, and he'd just absorb it. I thought it made him weak. I told myself a strong man would push back. I told myself he was the reason things felt boring. In the kitchen, I watched him rinse his mug, dry it, and place it on the counter. He always dried it completely before setting it down. I didn't get why he did that. It made the counter look weird, like two mugs were lines on opposite sides. His mug on one end, mine on the other. I rolled my eyes. "Are you cooking tonight?" he asked gently. I told him no, I didn't feel like it. He said he'd make something quick. I said no one asked him to. He didn't look hurt. He didn't raise his voice. He just started boiling water and chopping vegetables like the question had been a simple one. I went upstairs to change. I stared at myself in the mirror for a long time. I said I looked tired, but it wasn't my fault. Marcus didn't notice me anymore. That's what I told myself. That's what made everything easier. If he wasn't paying attention, then nothing was really on me. Over dinner, he tried to talk again. Something about Nico's school project. Something about Ruby wanting us to visit soon. I nodded but didn't answer much. I kept checking my phone. I told myself I was waiting for an important message from Callie. Really, I wanted Rafa to text again. I wanted that tiny hit of excitement. I wanted to feel like someone out there still thought I was fun. Marcus watched me, but not in a hostile way, more like he was memorizing the shape of my face. I didn't like that. It made me feel exposed. It made me feel like he was waiting for me to say something honest. I didn't plan to. That night, after we cleaned up the dishes, well, he cleaned while I scrolled through my phone, he mentioned that he'd like us to spend time together this weekend. Something simple, like a movie or a walk. I told him I was busy. He asked with what? I said work. He said we could plan around it. I said he was crowding me. He went quiet again. Later, when he went into the bedroom first, I stayed in the hall for a few minutes. I checked the fridge door. A new sticky note was there. It said, "Bring forms." I didn't think much of it. I figured it was something about insurance or taxes. He was always trying to organize things. I never took it seriously. I peeled it halfway off the fridge, then stuck it back slightly crooked. On Tuesday, Callie texted saying Tara was putting together a girls' night and I should come. I asked who else was going. She said everyone. I hesitated only a moment before telling her I'd be there. I didn't even bother telling Marcus until dinner. When I did, he asked if we could talk about the weekend again. I told him I already had plans. He didn't argue. He didn't try to convince me. He just said okay and went upstairs. I followed later, and the guest room door was closed. I pushed it open and saw the blanket folded neatly on the bed. His pillow had a faint impression. I asked why he was sleeping in there. He said he didn't want to wake me in the morning. I told him he was being dramatic. He didn't respond. That night, I stayed awake, scrolling and laughing at memes Callie sent me. I knew Marcus could hear me through the wall. A small part of me liked that. I wanted him to know I didn't need him to have a good night. On Wednesday morning, I found another strange thing. A new entry on the fridge calendar. Downtown 2:10 p.m. Marcus never wrote things like that, not with times that specific. I asked him what it meant. He said, "Just errands." I rolled my eyes and asked if he was joining a secret club. He said nothing. He just rinsed his mug and put it down on the opposite end of the counter again. At work, my coworkers were already planning for the weekend. I mentioned the girls' night, and Tara said she couldn't wait. She asked if Marcus was coming. I laughed and said he didn't like clubs because he was too stiff. They laughed with me. It felt good to joke like that. It felt powerful. I told myself I wasn't hurting anyone. I said Marcus didn't mind. I said he would get over it. I told myself that if he wanted me to stay home, he should act more fun. I didn't think about how those jokes would land. I never really did. That evening, when Marcus got home, he seemed tired. He set his keys on the counter, washed his hands, and asked if I wanted to eat together. I told him I'd already eaten. I hadn't. I just didn't want to sit with him. I wanted to keep my energy for Friday night. He looked at me for a long second before nodding. Then he went into the guest room and closed the door again. I heard a faint click. It sounded like a lock. I didn't know he even used that lock. I stood outside the door for a moment, listening. I heard a soft beep, the kind phones make when someone starts recording something or saving a voice memo. I didn't understand it. I thought maybe he was listening to a podcast. I shrugged it off. On Thursday, Rafa sent a message again. He said the club would be packed and he had a special table for us. I sent a screenshot to Callie. She replied with a laughing emoji and said, "You better wear something hot." That night at dinner, Marcus asked if I was drinking a lot these days. I told him to stop acting like my father. He said he was just concerned. I said he didn't get to be concerned when he barely looked at me anymore. He said he did look at me. I told him not to lie. He went quiet. I pushed more. I told him he needed to stop acting like the world was ending every time I had fun. I told him if he felt insecure, that was on him. He said he wasn't insecure. He said he was tired. I laughed at that. I said he always used tired as an excuse. He didn't say anything else. He just stood up, rinsed his mug again, and placed it on the counter in that same perfect spot. I watched him walk down the hall to the guest room. When the door clicked shut, I felt this strange satisfaction, like I had won something, like silence meant I was right. On Friday afternoon, the girls' group chat lit up. Everyone was excited. Callie said she needed pure chaos energy. Tara said she hoped the DJ played something loud enough to shake the walls. I sent a picture of my new dress. When Marcus came home, he saw me getting ready. He asked if he could talk to me for a minute. I told him to make it quick. He said he missed me. I said he had a funny way of showing it. He said he wanted things to feel better between us. I said things would feel better if he stopped suffocating me. He opened his mouth to say something else, then stopped. He just nodded and stepped aside so I could pass. I grabbed my purse and walked toward the door. As I left, my phone buzzed with a new message from Rafa. "See you soon. Don't keep us waiting." I felt a rush of pride, like I mattered again. Like I was stepping into a night where I could shine. I didn't look back to see Marcus standing in the hallway, watching me go. He didn't call after me. He didn't ask me to stay. He didn't even sigh. He just stood there quietly in the dim light. At the time, I thought that silence meant he had finally given up the fight. I thought it meant I had space to do whatever I wanted. I thought it meant freedom. I didn't realize it was the start of something else. Something slow, careful, and deliberate. Something I didn't see coming at all. I got to Callie's place, a little after 7, and the minute she opened the door, I felt that kind of buzzing excitement I had been craving all week. She already had music playing loud enough that the floor vibrated a little. Tara was sitting on the couch painting her nails, and Priya was checking the weather to decide whether she needed a jacket. They all turned when I walked in, and Callie let out a whistle like I'd just stepped onto a runway. I laughed, flipping my hair a little more than necessary. I liked the attention. I liked the way they all leaned in and asked if Marcus had tried to stop me from coming. I said he hadn't said anything at all. That got a chorus of surprised sounds, and Callie said that meant he'd finally given up trying to micromanage me. I didn't bother correcting her. It felt too good to hear someone take my side without hesitation. We left the apartment a little after 8, piling into a rideshare that smelled faintly of citrus and cheap cologne. The driver chatted the entire way, asking if we were celebrating something. I said we were celebrating freedom. That made everyone laugh. I didn't think about Marcus sitting at home or what he might be doing. I didn't want to. When we pulled up to the club, the line stretched around the block. For a second, I thought we'd be stuck waiting forever, but Rafa waved from the entrance. He had that big, bright grin he always used, the one that made him look like he was on every guest list in the world. He walked over, put an arm lightly around my shoulder, already too close, and told the bouncer we were with him. I didn't push his arm away. It felt good. It felt like a spotlight had snapped on, and everyone else was background noise. My friends looked at me with a mix of amusement and envy. I soaked it in. Rafa led us through the main doors into a crush of sound and lights. The bass was so strong it rattled my ribs, and I loved it. Inside, the club felt alive. People were already dancing on every inch of the dance floor, drinks sloshing, lights flashing, the air thick with perfume and sweat. Tara disappeared within seconds, dragged by someone she knew. Priya went straight to the bar. Callie stuck close to me, bouncing her shoulders in excitement. Rafa led us to a raised section near the DJ booth. He had a small table saved with a bucket of drinks. He handed me one without asking, and I took it without thinking. I never drank much at the start of a night, but the moment the music hit me, I wanted the warm buzz. I wanted everything around me to blur a little. We danced for a while, or at least I did. Callie drifted in and out of conversations with people she recognized. Rafa stayed close, sometimes too close. He wasn't touching me constantly, but he stayed in my space. Every time someone bumped into me, he'd place a steadying hand on my back or my arm. I told myself it was normal club behavior. I told myself he was just being nice. After a few drinks, the room began to shimmer, in that way it does when you start feeling light and blurry. I liked that feeling. I liked the way the music seemed to wrap around me. I raised my arms and let the rhythm take over. People cheered when the song shifted. Someone shouted my name, Tara, I think, and another person started recording on their phone. At some point, Rafa placed his hands on my waist and spun me around in front of him. I laughed and leaned back against him. It felt harmless. It felt like the kind of thing anyone would do on a night out. His hands lingered a little longer than they should have, but I brushed it off. It wasn't until a few minutes later that I noticed the way certain people around us started stepping closer. A hand brushed my hip that didn't belong to Rafa. Another hand grazed my thigh from someone passing by. I told myself it was just the crowd pushing together when the music got loud. I told myself it wasn't intentional. I didn't even turn around to see who it was. Callie returned at one point, laughing breathlessly. She said people kept talking about the woman in the red dress. I realized she meant me. That gave me a shot of pride. I lifted my drink and shouted something I don't even remember. People cheered again. I felt like the star of the night. I didn't think about how messy it probably looked from the outside. Then the tone shifted. I didn't notice it right away, because the drink in my hand was half gone, and everything felt soft. But Callie suddenly said, Marcus is here. I blinked stupidly, certain I misheard her. What? I shouted. Callie nodded toward the bar. I looked, and there he was. Marcus, standing still as a statue, one hand resting loosely on the counter, the other hanging by his side. He wasn't glaring. He wasn't storming toward me. He was just watching. His face was blank in a way that made something inside me twist. He didn't push through the crowd to reach me. He didn't shout my name. He didn't cause a scene. He just stood there, looking like he was trying to understand what he was seeing. I raised my eyebrows, annoyed. I shouted at Callie, "He needs to relax." She laughed and agreed loudly enough for a few people around us to hear. Rafa noticed Marcus then. He stepped closer behind me, resting a hand lightly on my hip. It was subtle but visible. He leaned in as if whispering something, though I didn't catch a word. The move felt strangely deliberate, like he wanted Marcus to see it. I turned my head a little, just enough to catch Marcus's expression. He didn't look angry. He didn't look jealous. He looked tired, and something about that bothered me more than any anger would have. Tara came running over then, phone in hand. She said she got a great video of me dancing and wanted me to see it. She shoved the screen toward me. I watched myself stumbling a little as Rafa held my waist, laughing too loudly, my dress riding up more than I realized. The angle made it look worse. It made it look like strangers were surrounding me, hands everywhere. Callie laughed. She said it looked iconic. Priya said I needed to post it. I laughed too, because I didn't want anyone to know I felt a flicker of embarrassment. When I looked back at the bar, Marcus was still there. He didn't react to the video. He didn't even blink. He just looked at me with a calm that felt colder than anger. I pushed through the crowd toward him, irritated. When I reached him, I asked why he had come, if he was just going to stare. He said Tara invited him earlier. I rolled my eyes and asked if he planned to ruin the night. He said he wasn't planning anything. He asked if I was okay. I told him not to start with that. I said he was smothering me. He said he wasn't smothering anyone. I said he needed to stop checking up on me like I couldn't take care of myself. He didn't argue. He just nodded. That made me even angrier. "Why are you even here?" I shouted over the music. He said he wanted to make sure I got home safely. I laughed in his face. "You don't trust me." He said. "I didn't say that." I snapped. "You didn't have to." He didn't fight back. He didn't reach for me. He didn't raise his voice. He just stood there. And the calmer he stayed, the more ridiculous I felt without admitting it. Rafa came up behind me again, placing a hand on my shoulder. He asked if everything was fine. I said, "Yeah, he's just being dramatic." I made sure Marcus heard it. I don't know why. Maybe I wanted him to react. Maybe I wanted him to show some kind of fire. He didn't. He just lowered his eyes for a second, then lifted them again. I couldn't read his expression. Then someone nearby raised their phone. The little red light blinked as they started recording. Callie shouted something like, "Get the angle where he looks jealous." She pointed at Marcus like he was a prop in some performance. The person with the phone laughed. More people turned to look. A few whispered. Someone said something about husbands needing to loosen up. Another person said I was way out of his league. I saw the way Marcus's jaw tightened at that, barely. He didn't say anything. He didn't correct anyone. He didn't step closer. He just quietly set his drink on the counter, straightened his jacket, and walked toward the exit without a single word. I stared after him, stunned. I expected him to pause. I expected him to turn around. He didn't. He moved through the crowd like a ghost, unnoticed by almost everyone except me. When he reached the door, the bouncer nodded at him. He didn't look back. He just stepped outside into the night. Callie nudged me and said he was being dramatic. Tara said he was embarrassed because he couldn't handle the attention I was getting. Priya said he needed to grow a backbone. I laughed with them, but inside, something felt hollow. Still, I pushed that feeling down. I said it was his fault for coming. I said if he couldn't handle seeing me have fun, that was on him. I said he should support me instead of acting like he owned me. The girls cheered. Rafa handed me another drink. Someone hugged me. Someone else asked for a selfie. I smiled through all of it. I kept dancing. I kept laughing. I kept pretending everything felt perfect. But the truth was, something had tilted. Something I didn't have a name for yet. And when Tara showed me the new video she'd posted, with Marcus walking away in the background, the caption reading, "When your man can't keep up with the vibe," I didn't think about how it might hurt him. I only thought about how many likes it would get. I woke up the next morning with my head pounding and my mouth dry, the kind of dryness that tastes like old sugar and regret. The light coming through the curtains felt too sharp, and for a moment, I didn't even know what time it was. I reached for my phone before I even sat up. Notifications flooded the screen, group chat messages, likes, comments, tags, everything. The videos from last night were everywhere. Tara had posted 3 separate clips, all of them with some over-the-top caption about wild energy and main character moments. I watched one of them with the volume low. I winced at how loud my own laugh sounded. I didn't look steady. My dress was too short, my hair too messy. I didn't even remember half the moments captured. But the worst part was the angle where you could see Marcus walking away in the background. The comment section had already turned it into a joke. People said things like, "She needs a man who can keep up," and "He looks like her accountant," and "Girl, let him go." I should have felt something. But instead, I told myself they were right. I convinced myself these strangers somehow made sense. I didn't allow myself to think about the way Marcus's face looked when he left. Callie texted me, "Breakfast? We need to debrief." I typed back, "Give me 30 minutes." When I stepped out of the bedroom, the house felt empty. Not quiet, empty. Marcus wasn't in the kitchen. The guest room door was slightly open, showing the pillow still indented. The mug he usually rinsed and placed carefully on the counter was missing. I checked the sink. Nothing. I checked the drying rack. Still nothing. I frowned. It made no sense. He never left dishes out. On the fridge, another note appeared on the calendar. Meeting. Personal. No time. No details. Just that clean, neat handwriting of his. I stared at it for a moment longer than I planned. The more I stared, the more uneasy I felt. I didn't want to call it a red flag. I didn't want to imagine he was doing anything serious. I told myself he was sulking, that he wanted attention, that he was trying to guilt me. I shook my head and grabbed my purse. At Callie's apartment, the smell of coffee and toast hit me as soon as I walked in. Tara was already there, hair in a messy bun, scrolling through her phone with a grin. Priya sat cross-legged on the couch, munching on a muffin. Callie looked at me and burst into laughter. "You were insane last night," she said. Tara lifted her phone and flipped it toward me. "People are obsessed with the video. You're practically viral." I laughed too, though a small part of me twisted with discomfort. It wasn't that crazy. They all interrupted with exaggerated gasps. "Not that crazy," Callie said. "Girl, half the club was watching you." "I guess," I said. Priya leaned forward. "So, Marcus showing up, what was that about?" I shrugged. "He said Tara invited him. He wanted to check on me." I added air quotes. Tara blinked. "I did invite him earlier, but I didn't think he'd actually come." She didn't look guilty, just curious. "He looked so lost." "He shouldn't have come if he was just going to stand there like a statue," I said quickly. "He could have joined the fun." Callie snorted. "Marcus, fun, please." Everyone laughed. I laughed too, even though something about the way Tara looked at me, like she was trying to connect some invisible dots, made me uneasy. After breakfast, I headed to work. The office felt different the moment I stepped in. People paused their conversations when I walked by. A few co-workers smirked. Someone whispered, "That's her." I pretended I didn't hear it. I kept my head high and walked to my desk. Nate from marketing leaned over the cubicle wall and waved his phone. "You're popular this morning," he said. I forced a smile. "Guess people don't have anything better to do." He laughed. "I mean, the video was wild. But hey, if you're having fun, live your life." The way he said wild made something inside me twist. I hated that word. It made me sound sloppy. Still, I acted casual. "Just a regular night." A few desks down, I heard someone whisper, "What did her husband do?" Another voice responded, "Walked out, apparently. Can't blame him." My jaw tightened. I pretended to be busy sorting papers. Later, during lunch, Priya messaged me a screenshot from another angle of the video. This one was worse. It showed someone's hand clearly sliding too close along my side. I hadn't even noticed that moment. The music blurred everything in my memory. She wrote, "Girl, this part. Did you know?" I stared at the screen. My stomach turned a little, but I typed back fast. "Crowds are crowded. Not a big deal." She didn't reply. When I got home that evening, Marcus's car wasn't in the driveway. A small wave of confusion hit me. He always came home before me unless he texted otherwise. I went inside and checked the kitchen again. The counters were spotless. Too spotless. It looked staged, like a showroom instead of a home. The guest room door was fully closed this time. I pushed the handle. Locked. "Marcus," I called, knocking lightly. No answer. I waited. Nothing. I pressed my ear against the door. No footsteps, no movement. Just silence. I walked away, irritated. I told myself he was being childish, that he was giving me the silent treatment, that he wanted me to feel bad. I rolled my eyes as I went into the living room and dropped onto the couch. My phone buzzed. A message from my mum. "Are you and Marcus okay? Heard something through the grapevine." I groaned. "Which grapevine?" I typed back. Before she answered, I got another message. From Ruby, his mother. "Would like to talk. Call when you can." I didn't call. I tossed the phone aside and stared at the ceiling. Everyone was being dramatic. Everyone was blowing things out of proportion. I didn't do anything wrong. I was just having fun. Around 9, Marcus finally came home. I heard the keys, the door opening, then closing softly. He walked through the hallway slowly, not rushed, not nervous, just steady. When he entered the living room, he looked at me but didn't sit. He kept standing, hands in his pockets. "How was your day?" he asked. His voice was calm, too calm. "Fine," I said. "Yours?" "Productive." He didn't offer more. He just walked into the kitchen, took his mug, rinsed it again even though it was already clean, and placed it back in that same perfect spot on the counter. I followed him. "Are you mad?" "No." "Then why are you acting weird?" "I'm not acting weird." His voice didn't have the usual tiredness. It had something else. Something steady. Controlled. I scoffed. "You're the only person I know who can sulk without looking angry." He dried his hands with a kitchen towel. "I'm not sulking." "Then talk to me," I said. "Say something real." He turned slightly, leaning against the counter. "What do you want me to say?" "That you understand the video looks worse than it was," I said quickly. "That you know I didn't do anything." He paused. "I didn't say you did." "Then stop acting like this." "I'm not acting like anything." I hated how calm he was. I hated how his voice didn't rise with mine. It made me feel small, like every word I threw at him bounced off something solid. I pushed harder. "Are you embarrassed? Is that it? Because of what people said online?" His eyes lowered for a second. "People can say what they want." "Then why are you so cold?" He didn't answer right away. He wiped the sink with a cloth, slow and quiet, as if thinking. Finally he said, "I'm just processing." Processing. The word made me roll my eyes. That's such a vague thing to say. You always do this. You shut down so you can make me feel guilty. He didn't look at me when he said, "You feel whatever you want." I froze. Something about that line stung more than anything else. Before I could answer, he walked down the hallway. The guest room door clicked again. I stood there alone in the too-clean kitchen, staring at the calendar. The meeting personal note glared at me now. Why did he need to schedule something vague like that? Why did the kitchen feel like someone had been removing fingerprints from every surface? I tried to shake it off. I messaged Callie. She sent me a string of laughing emojis and a link to yet another angle of last night's clips. I pretended to laugh, but the silence in the house pressed against my skin, like something I couldn't escape. Before bed, I knocked on the guest room door again. "Marcus?" No answer. I knocked harder. "Are you seriously going to sleep in there again?" Silence. I exhaled loudly. "Fine. If you're going to be like this, that's on you." I went to bed alone, but I didn't sleep. I kept hearing tiny sounds through the wall. Paper shifting, something clicking, maybe typing. Once I heard the faint hum of what sounded like a printer warming up. I stared at the ceiling, refusing to let the unease settle. I told myself he was organizing bills or doing work. I told myself it was nothing, but deep down, a very small part of me, one I didn't want to acknowledge, felt something else. Something like the first crack of fear. I woke up earlier than usual the next day, though I couldn't explain why. The house was quiet again, the kind of quiet that didn't feel peaceful. It felt like a gap, like something important had stepped out and closed the door behind it. Marcus was gone already, his side of the bed smoothed over, as if he hadn't slept there at all. I checked the hallway out of habit. The guest room door was wide open now, the blanket folded neatly again, the pillow fluffed. None of it showed signs of anyone actually using the room. Somehow, that made the whole space feel colder. In the kitchen, his mug sat in its usual place, spotless. A faint coffee smell lingered in the air. On the fridge, a new calendar note appeared. "Pick up items, 4:45. No details, just the time. The handwriting was small and steady, impossibly neat. I rolled my eyes and muttered to myself that he was taking this organization thing way too far. It wasn't like him to write so many notes, but I told myself he was probably just trying to keep busy. I made toast, though I barely ate it. My mind felt foggy. I kept thinking about the whispers at work and the way people looked at me. Every time I blinked, I saw some stranger's hand brushing my hip in that clip. I hated that moment replaying in my mind. I hated that people thought I enjoyed it on purpose. But instead of admitting that, I blamed Marcus for letting things get so tense between us in the first place. I said to myself that if he'd acted more confident, none of this would have happened. Around noon, my mum called. She didn't even say hello. She went straight into asking what was going on. She said Ruby had called her, concerned about the club situation. I groaned and told her people were blowing things out of proportion. I told her I didn't do anything wrong, and that Marcus was being distant on purpose. She said maybe I should apologize for how public the night was. I snapped back that she always took Marcus's side. She went quiet after that, then said she just wanted me to think carefully. I hung up first. A little later, Callie asked if I wanted to meet for lunch. I went because I didn't want to stay in the silence of the house. We met at a family restaurant near the park. I chose it because it was busy, loud, and familiar. I didn't like quiet spaces anymore, not when I was alone with my thoughts. Callie waved me over from a corner booth. She was already halfway through a basket of fries. "You look tense," she said as I sat down, "still thinking about Marcus." I told her I was thinking about everything. She shrugged and said he just needed to get over it. She asked if he even said anything about the videos. I said no. She laughed and said that meant he knew he was wrong and didn't want to argue. I forced a smile. We ordered sandwiches. The server seemed distracted, and I wondered if she recognized me from the video. I hated that thought, but I couldn't shake it. When she brought our drinks, she glanced at me for half a second too long. Maybe it was nothing, but it made my skin prickle. Callie scrolled through her phone. "People are still talking about it," she said. "Honestly, most of them are on your side." I pretended that made me feel better. Then the door chimed, and I glanced up. To my surprise, Marcus's mother, Ruby, walked in. She didn't see me at first. She spoke quietly to the host, then turned, and her eyes landed on our booth. Her expression tightened. She made her way over with careful steps. "Vesper," she said softly, "can we talk for a moment?" Callie stiffened, but I nodded. Ruby asked if we could step outside. Something about the way she asked made me feel like a child caught misbehaving. I followed her out to the walkway near the front windows. She clasped her hands together. "I'm worried," she said. "About you. About Marcus." I crossed my arms. "We're fine." Her eyes held mine. "Are you?" I felt something sharp inside me, like irritation with a hint of embarrassment. "People are exaggerating," I said. "It was just a night out. I didn't do anything." "I know you didn't mean harm," she said, but he looked very hurt. "He didn't look anything," I snapped. "He just stared." That was the part that worried me. Her voice was calm in a way that made me want to shout. I hated being judged, especially by someone so quiet. I told her Marcus was being dramatic and that she shouldn't feed into it. She didn't respond. She just gave me a long, steady look. "Please," she said gently, "talk to him before this goes further." I didn't want to admit her words unsettled me, so I nodded just to end the conversation. When I went back inside, Callie asked what she wanted. I waved it off and said Ruby was overreacting. Callie rolled her eyes and said older generations didn't understand modern relationships. We finished our lunch, though my stomach felt tight the entire time. When Callie left for work, I didn't want to go home yet. I walked to the park nearby. The weather was mild, the sky pale blue, the kind of peaceful day I usually loved. Kids ran on the grass. A group of teens took photos by the fountain. I sat on a bench and watched them. For a moment, I wondered what Marcus was doing. I imagined him sitting at his desk, maybe grading papers or answering emails. Maybe he wasn't thinking about me at all. That idea stung more than I expected. My phone buzzed. A message from Tara. "People think Marcus is controlling. LMAO, winner for Husband of the Year." I forced a laugh, but it felt dry. I typed something back about him needing a sense of humor. But after I sent it, I felt worse. The park began to feel too open, too exposed. I decided to go home. When I got back, his car was in the driveway. I felt a strange mixture of relief and annoyance. I walked inside. Marcus stood in the living room, sorting something on the coffee table, papers, envelopes, a small notebook. He quickly gathered them into a stack when he heard me. "What are you doing?" I asked. "Just organizing things," he said. I stepped closer. "What things?" "Household things." That answer irritated me. "You've been acting weird all week," I said. "Are you punishing me?" He looked up then, his eyes soft but tired. "No, I'm just thinking about what comes next." My stomach tightened. What does that mean? He didn't answer immediately. He just sorted the papers into a neat pile and closed the notebook. I noticed a blue folder near his elbow labeled Utilities, another labeled Bank. These weren't new, they just looked refreshed, as if he had redone everything from scratch. He stood up. "I think we should take some space from arguing," he said. "We're not arguing. You're avoiding me," I shot back. He nodded once, like he accepted that but didn't want to debate it. I pushed harder. "If you're upset about the club, just say so." He shook his head. "It's not just the club." "Then what?" He opened his mouth, then closed it again. "I'm trying to be careful with my words." That made me angrier than anything else. "Why? You think I'm fragile?" "No," he said quietly. "I think things are fragile." I stared at him, not sure what to do with that. Before I could ask anything else, he said he needed to go pick up something before the place closed. He grabbed his keys and walked out without waiting for me to answer. The door shut softly, but the silence afterward felt louder than if he'd slammed it. I wandered through the house, trying to find something normal to focus on. I cleaned the kitchen even though it was already spotless. I refolded a blanket. I watered a plant I barely remembered buying. Nothing helped. When Marcus returned an hour later, he didn't bring anything inside. He just set his keys down and went to wash his hands. I asked him if he wanted dinner. He said he wasn't hungry. "We can't keep doing this," I said finally. He sighed, the kind of sigh that felt controlled, rehearsed almost. "I know." "Well?" I pushed. "Say something." "I will," he said, "when it's the right time." I threw my hands up. "If you think I'm the villain, just say so." "I don't think you're a villain," he said softly. "I think you're someone who doesn't see how things look." "Wow," I said. "Great, thanks." He didn't rise to it. He didn't walk away either. He just stood there, looking at me with an expression I couldn't read. Something old and something new at the same time. The air between us felt stretched thin. I stepped forward, expecting him to step back. He didn't, but he didn't reach for me either. The distance between us wasn't measured in inches anymore. It was something else, something quiet and heavy. After a moment, he said he was going to sleep early. He walked down the hall. The guest room door clicked shut. I stayed in the living room, staring at the blank TV screen, seeing my reflection faintly in the dark glass. I didn't like how lost I looked. I grabbed my phone and scrolled through messages, trying to feel connected to someone, anyone. Tara sent a meme. Callie sent a voice note laughing about something her coworker said. Priya didn't message at all. I typed a long message to Marcus, asking why he was shutting me out. I deleted it before sending. I typed another one accusing him of making things worse. I deleted that too. Eventually, I put my phone face down and just sat there. The house was silent except for one faint noise, the soft buzz of something behind the guest room door. Maybe his phone, maybe the printer again, maybe nothing. But whatever it was, it made my chest tighten. I told myself he was just being dramatic. I told myself he was dragging things out. I told myself he'd eventually talk things out like always, but the truth was sitting in the silence with me, and I couldn't hide from it anymore. Something was shifting, and I didn't know how to stop it. I woke up the next morning with a feeling I didn't recognize at first, a tightness low in my ribs, like something was winding itself inside me. For a moment, I told myself it was just lack of sleep or stress from work. But the truth hovered right behind that excuse. Things with Marcus were slipping out of my hands, and I didn't know how to grip them again. Every attempt I made turned into an argument. Every argument turned into silence. And every silence sounded more final than the last. When I stepped into the hallway, the guest room door was open again, the blanket folded neatly, the pillow dented only slightly. He had slept there, but he had taken the time to erase almost every sign of it. Even the air felt untouched. I looked inside, expecting maybe a piece of clothing or his phone charger left behind. Nothing. The room looked staged, like a catalogue photo. I hated that. It made me feel like I wasn't living with a person anymore, just a presence carefully removing itself from the world I thought we shared. In the kitchen, the counters were spotless. His mug sat in the same place, clean and dry. My mug from last night sat in the sink, half rinsed, the last bit of tea dried at the bottom. The contrast annoyed me. It made me feel childish. On the fridge, a new note appeared. Sort boxes. Underneath it, in smaller letters, 910. I stared at it. Sort boxes? Since when did he sort anything? Marcus rarely moved things unless he needed them. And what boxes? We didn't have any big storage projects going on, or at least none I knew of. I touched the sticky note, sliding my finger along the corner before pressing it back down. I didn't like how steady his handwriting looked. I didn't like how each letter was so controlled. He came home from his morning run just as I sat down with my toast. His breathing was even. He looked calm, too calm. He said good morning, and I nodded. That was it. No warmth, no tension, just nothing. He walked past me to rinse his hands, then took his mug and poured himself coffee. He didn't ask if I wanted any. I didn't offer conversation. After a long silence, he finally said, "We need to talk." My pulse jumped. About what? He didn't sit down. He leaned against the counter like he was anchoring himself. "This isn't working," he said. "We can't keep moving like this." I scoffed. "Like what? You shutting me out?" He shook his head. "Like this. The constant pressure. The arguing. The pretending." I felt a rush of anger. "You're making it sound worse than it is. People fight. Couples fight. It doesn't mean everything is broken." He didn't answer. "You're overreacting," I pushed. "You always do this. You make everything so dramatic." His eyes met mine. "I'm not being dramatic," he said quietly. "I'm being careful." Careful, that word again. I wanted to throw something. Careful about what? Me? He looked at the mug in his hands for a moment. About us. I hated the way he said it, like he'd already weighed every word, like he'd rehearsed the whole thing in his head while jogging. "Well," I snapped, "if you want things to get better, you should act like it instead of hiding in the guest room." He set the mug down. "I'm not hiding." "Then what are you doing?" "Giving us space." "Space for what?" "To understand what needs to change." I flinched, not because of the words, but because he said them so gently, like he wasn't trying to hurt me. Somehow that made them hit harder. I crossed my arms. "So what? You think I'm the problem?" He exhaled through his nose. "I think we both have problems." Which, of course, I heard as, "He thinks I'm the problem." I turned away. "Great. Fantastic. You're the calm, wise one, and I'm the hurricane." He didn't deny it. He didn't confirm it either. He just wiped his hands on the kitchen towel and said, "I'll handle things properly." Properly, like we were filing paperwork, like our marriage was a project he needed to clean up and reorganize. Before I could throw another accusation at him, his phone buzzed. He checked it. No expression changed. Then he grabbed his keys. "Where are you going?" I asked. "Errand." "What errand?" He didn't answer. He just left. The door shut so softly it somehow felt louder than a slam. After he was gone, I paced the kitchen, feeling like the walls were closing in. I opened the fridge, closed it, repeated the motion. I checked the calendar again, staring at his notes. I didn't know why they bothered me so much, but they did. Maybe because they didn't include me. Maybe because they looked too methodical. I texted Callie, "We need to talk." She replied instantly, "At yours or mine?" I said, "Mine." When she arrived, she dropped onto the couch with a dramatic sigh. "Okay, tell me everything." I told her Marcus was acting strange, cold, distant. She shrugged like it was obvious. "He's still mad about the club." "He says it's not just the club." She rolled her eyes. "Well, he's probably thinking too much. Men think they're deep when really they're just tired." I laughed, though it felt forced. "He's doing all these weird things, locking the guest room, writing notes everywhere, sorting papers." "Maybe he's stressed," she said. "Stressed about what?" She shrugged again. "Life, work, whatever." I wanted her to say something more helpful, but she didn't. So instead, we talked about other things. Clothes, work gossip, a new cafe opening near her place. Anything except Marcus, even though my mind kept drifting back to him. When she left, the house felt even heavier than before. I walked into the living room and stood there a while, staring at the bookshelf. Everything looked normal. Too normal. I went into the bedroom and checked the nightstand. Nothing. I checked the closet. His clothes were still there, but they looked more organized than usual. His shoes were lined up perfectly. Then I noticed something else. My things were messy in comparison. Shoes scattered, clothes draped over a chair, makeup left open on the dresser. It made me feel exposed, disheveled. I shut the closet door too hard and regretted it immediately. I grabbed my phone and texted Marcus again. "We need to talk tonight." He didn't reply. Hours passed. At around 6, he finally came home. I was on the couch pretending to watch a show. He walked in quietly, set his keys down, and took off his jacket. "Can we talk now?" I asked sharply. He nodded once. "Sure." He sat in the armchair across from me. Not next to me, not close. Across. I took a breath. "Do you even care how I feel? Or are you just retreating into your little silent bubble?" He didn't react. "I care," he said calmly, "but I can't keep going in circles with you." "What circles?" "Everything we talk about turns into blame." "That's because you don't communicate." "I'm communicating now." His steady voice threw me off. "You're being distant on purpose." "I'm being clear." "No, you're trying to punish me." "I'm trying to find a way to move forward without hurting each other more." The phrase hurting each other made my chest tighten. I laughed, defensive. "You're acting like I broke something." He looked at me for a long moment. "You didn't break something, but something is cracked." I hated that word. Cracked, like I was careless, like I had dropped something delicate. "You're twisting everything," I snapped. "If you want to accuse me of something, just say it." He shook his head. "I'm not accusing you." "Then what are you doing?" He held my gaze. "Preparing." My mouth went dry. "Preparing for what?" "For what comes next." I felt a jolt of fear, sharp and cold. "What does that mean, Marcus?" He didn't answer. Instead, he stood. He walked toward the hallway. Before he left the room, he turned slightly and said, "I'll handle everything properly." "Properly how?" I whispered. But he was already walking away. His phone buzzed in his hand. The screen lit up with an alert. "Paper drop, 8:15. He tapped it once, then disappeared into the hallway. My breath caught in my throat. "Paper drop?" I sat there, frozen, my heart beat unevenly. I stood, pacing the room, waiting for him to return, waiting for him to explain. But the house stayed quiet. Too quiet. I went into the kitchen and stared at the clock until the numbers blurred. Minutes passed, then more. He didn't come back out. He stayed in that guest room behind a locked door, doing God knows what, leaving me outside with nothing but silence and fear and the feeling that something irreversible was already moving toward me. Something he was choosing, something he had planned, something he would follow through on, calmly, quietly, and without a single raised voice. I didn't sleep that night. I kept drifting in and out of shallow half-dreams, each one shaped like a hallway with a closed door at the end. Every time I opened my eyes, the house felt darker, like something inside it had already shifted into a different arrangement. I stared at the ceiling, telling myself I wasn't scared, just annoyed. But every time I repeated the words, they felt less true. Around 6 a.m, I finally got up. The floor was cold under my feet. I walked to the kitchen and found the coffee pot already brewing. Marcus must have set it on a timer. He always did things like that, small, quiet habits that made life smoother. I used to appreciate them. Now they irritated me because they made it harder to tell myself he didn't care. His mug sat on the counter again, spotless. I hadn't heard him wash it. I hadn't heard anything at all after he shut the guest room door the night before. I moved it to the side just to see how it felt. It didn't help. I saw another new note on the fridge. Downtown, 10:40. The handwriting was crisp and steady. I felt something small twist behind my ribs. Why downtown? Why the exact time? Why without saying anything? I grabbed my phone and typed a message to him. Can we talk this morning? Please. He didn't answer. I walked to the guest room and pressed my ear to the door. Silence. I knocked softly. Marcus? Nothing. I turned the handle. Still locked. I stepped back, swallowing the lump building in my throat. Around 8, I heard the shower, then the quiet sound of him moving around the bedroom. He dressed with the same calm he'd used in every conversation lately. When he stepped into the hallway, he saw me standing there, arms crossed, hair a mess, still in pajamas. Can we talk now? I asked. My voice sounded sharper than I intended. He looked at me for a long moment. Yes, he said. We can. He walked past me to the kitchen table. He didn't sit. I stayed across from him, gripping the back of a chair. He didn't start with blame or questions. He didn't ask for explanations. He didn't raise his voice or sigh. His voice was level, almost gentle when he said, I think we should meet somewhere neutral. Neutral? I repeated. We're talking in our own house. I know, he said, but I think it's better somewhere public. Somewhere calm. I blinked. Why? He didn't answer. Instead, he checked his watch. I'm leaving in a few minutes. I would like you to come with me. I laughed, confused and defensive. Where? Couples therapy? A cafe? What? The courthouse, he said quietly. My stomach dropped so hard I felt dizzy. Courthouse? For what? He didn't raise his voice. To talk, to make decisions. I'm not going to some courthouse, I snapped. This is ridiculous. He didn't argue. He just nodded slightly, as if he already knew I'd say that. I'm going, he said. If you come with me, we can talk face to face. Properly, without shouting, without avoiding things. That word again, properly. I hated it now more than anything. And if I don't go, I demanded. He looked at me with that calm, steady expression that had haunted the past week. Then things will still move forward. Before I could answer, he picked up his keys and walked out the front door. No anger, no hesitation, just purpose. I stood there frozen, breathing too fast. I told myself I didn't care. I told myself he was bluffing. I told myself he just wanted attention. But something inside me, some tiny shaking voice, whispered that this wasn't a bluff, that the notes, the folders, the silence, the locked door, all of it had been building towards something I refused to see. I changed clothes quickly, barely brushing my hair, barely thinking. I grabbed my purse and left the house without turning off the lights. The drive downtown felt unreal, like watching a movie from the back row of a theater. I kept replaying every argument, every look, every moment I'd brushed off. I didn't like how they sounded now. I didn't like remembering my own voice in those conversations. Too sharp, too dismissive, too certain I was untouchable. Traffic crawled, but I made it to the courthouse parking structure at 10:38. I didn't know if he expected me or if he'd already gone inside. I didn't see his car right away, but I kept going. When I entered the courthouse lobby, the air felt colder than outside. People spoke in low voices. Shoes clicked against polished floors. A guard scanned people walking through the metal detectors. Then I saw him. Marcus stood near one of the benches, hands in his pockets, staring ahead calmly. Ruby sat beside him, arms folded, posture tight. She looked at me for only a moment, then back at him. Her face didn't show anger, just something like tired disappointment. "Marcus," I called lightly, trying to sound composed. He turned. His expression didn't change. "Thank you for coming." I walked toward him, trying to hide the tremor in my steps. "What is this? Why are we here?" "We're here," he said slowly, "to make things official." Before I could ask what he meant, a man in a simple blazer approached us. He held a folder. He looked at me, then at Marcus. "Is this her?" he asked quietly. My heart began pounding so loudly I almost couldn't hear. Marcus nodded once. The man stepped closer to me. "Ma'am, I have documents for you." "Documents? What?" He handed me an envelope, thick, heavy. My hand shook as I opened it. Inside were divorce papers, filed, stamped, temporary orders clipped to the front. It felt like the ground shifted under me. "No," I whispered. "Marcus, no. You filed for divorce?" He didn't look away. "Yes." "You didn't even talk to me first," I shouted, my voice echoing too loudly in the quiet lobby. "You just went behind my back. You blindsided me." He shook his head. "I tried to talk. For days. That's not talking. That's you being silent and weird and distant." "That was me deciding," he said softly, "not avoiding." His calmness made it worse. I felt heat spreading up my neck. The edges of the lobby blurred a little. People had begun to watch from a distance. "Marcus, stop," I said, lowering my voice. "We can fix this. We always fix things." He blinked once. Just once. "We don't fix things," he said. "We circle them. And then you laugh so they feel smaller." "That's not fair," I snapped. "I was just having fun. It wasn't what it looked like." "I know," he said, "and it still hurt." Something inside me cracked at those words, not in the way he meant, more like panic breaking through denial. "You didn't even give me a chance to explain," I tried again. "You didn't fight for us." "I did fight," he said, just quietly. And then I stopped when I realized I was the only one fighting. "I loved you," I whispered. He nodded once. "I know." For a moment, nobody spoke. Not him, not me, not Ruby, or the man who'd served the papers. The lobby hummed around us, printers in the distance, footsteps, quiet voices. But it all felt muffled. I stared at the documents in my hands. My heartbeat thudded against them. Pages I didn't understand. Legal words I didn't want to read. Temporary orders for property. Temporary orders for custody. A date circled for the first hearing. I shook my head slowly. "You're doing this because of a video." "No," he said. "I'm doing this because of everything before the video. The video just showed me I wasn't wrong." "That's cruel," I whispered. "No," he said again. "Cruel would be staying and pretending we could keep living like that." I couldn't breathe. My throat felt tight, my chest tight, everything inside me pushed into one narrow point. I stepped toward him, reaching for his arm. "Please, Marcus, please don't do this." He stepped back, not harshly, not dramatically, just enough. That tiny movement hurt more than anything else. "I'll talk to you," he said. "I'll answer what needs answering. I'll sign what needs signing. I'll co-parent. I'll be respectful. But I won't be married to someone who humiliates me and then calls it fun." I froze, my hand still half raised. He didn't move closer. "You said you'd handle it properly," I whispered. "This is what you meant." "Yes," he said. He crossed the lobby toward Ruby, who stood up slowly. They walked together toward the elevator, the sound of their steps echoing across the marble floor. He didn't look back. Not once. The envelope in my hand slipped slightly, and I clutched it tighter. I stood there alone in the center of the courthouse lobby, people moving around me like I wasn't even part of the scene. For the first time all week, the silence didn't feel like something he created. It felt like something I had shaped myself. I opened my mouth to call after him, to say something, anything, but no words came out. The elevator doors closed with a soft final click, and everything that followed belonged to the papers in my hands.